After the war, after the fire, after the fall of the Dragon Queen, there was silence, a silence so heavy it made even the crows quiet. Jon Snow stood at the edge of the world again, the wall. Cold winds wrapped around him like old ghosts. He was supposed to be a hero, a warrior who saved the realm. But in truth, he felt like nothing. No songs, no crown, no peace in his heart, just exile. Bran the Broken was named king. Strange, quiet Bran. He who saw everything but spoke almost nothing. People said he was wise. Some called him fair. But Jon remembered the boy Bran used to be, and something in him didn't sit right. Every night Jon dreamed of Daenerys. Her face, her final breath in his arms. He'd killed her for the greater good. He believed that. Still does. Or tells himself he does. But every morning, guilt wrapped tighter around his chest. What was it all for? The North remembered. But did it care? The lords bowed to Bran. Tyrion, always clever with words, said the realm needed someone who didn't want power. But Jon had seen power in Bran's eyes once. Cold, unblinking, watching. Everyone. Watching him. One evening, as Jon fed Ghost outside the wall, a crow flew down. A black one with red eyes. Strange. It stared at him without blinking, like it knew something. It reminded Jon of Bran. The feeling stayed with him all night. The next day, an old ranger from the watch approached. He whispered, "You were always meant to lead, Jon. The real king. You have Targaryen blood, Stark blood. Not him. He's not. Even whole." Jon didn't answer, but the words sat heavy in his chest. Later that week, he got a raven from Sansa, short and strange. Bran's been distant. He doesn't sleep. He speaks in riddles, and sometimes I think he's watching. Things even he shouldn't. Jon frowned. Something was wrong. He walked alone that night, up the wall, into the wind. Ghost followed quietly, then stopped, refused to go higher. Jon stood alone. He remembered the moment when the lords offered Bran the crown. How Bran said, "Why do you think I came all this way?" That line. It echoed now. He knew he would be king. He let things happen. He watched Daenerys fall. He watched Jon be broken. And he said nothing. Did nothing. Until he got the throne. Jon clenched his fists. Not in anger, but in confusion. What if Bran planned this? What if he let everyone suffer just to sit on? That throne made of lies? Jon whispered to the wind, "Maybe it should have been me." And that single thought, that single moment, was where everything began to change. A week passed, maybe more. Time didn't move the same beyond the wall. Snow fell. Ravens came. But Jon stayed silent. He tried to push the thought away. That dark thought, maybe it should have been me. But darkness grows when left alone. One cold morning, someone came to visit. It was Tyrion. Not in gold, not in chains, just an old cloak, dust on his boots, and that tired look in his eyes. They met near the old hall at Castle Black. Tyrion didn't smile. He didn't joke. "I never liked Bran," he said quietly. Jon frowned. "You named him king." "I had no choice," Tyrion replied. "We all play our parts. But Bran, he's not like us anymore. He doesn't feel. He doesn't rule. He watches. That's all he does. And I wonder, Jon, is that what we needed? Or was it what he wanted?" Jon didn't answer. He just stared. At the fire, Tyrion tossed something into the flames. A folded piece of parchment. "A letter from Lord Royce. Says the Vales had no word from the king in weeks. He speaks through birds, not men." Jon shook his head. "Why are you telling me this?" Because sometimes the wrong people win. That night, John had a dream. Ghost growled at something in the dark. In the dream, he stood before Bran, who had no face, just 1,000 eyes, whispering, watching. You were never the choice. You were the shield. He woke up sweating. The next morning, another raven came, this one from Sansa. Bran sees too much. He stares through people. His eyes change when he's quiet. I miss my brother. I don't know who this is anymore. Jon didn't respond. What could he say? That afternoon, he walked outside the wall with Ghost. Snow crunched underfoot. Suddenly, a voice behind him. You feel it, too, said a voice he hadn't heard in years. He turned. It was Dolorous Ed's cousin, still alive. A man once in the watch, now hiding in the shadows. He looked sick, but his eyes burned with something sharp. They say you killed a queen, but you left the real danger alive. That's stared. You talk of my brother. I talk of the boy who stopped being human the day he saw too much. The man pulled out something from his cloak. A blade, an old one. Valyrian steel. Don't be a fool, Snow. The realm's not safe with that boy in charge. He's not just king. He's the last piece of the game. Jon didn't take the dagger, not yet, but he didn't walk away either. That night he sat alone, holding a candle, staring at nothing. The voice from his dream returned. You were the shield. But now, the shield was thinking about becoming the sword. Jon couldn't sleep. The dagger sat on his table, wrapped in cloth, still untouched, but it called to him, like it knew his thoughts, like it shared his pain. Every time Jon closed his eyes, he saw Bran. Not the little brother with broken legs, but a creature with no expression. A thing made of silence. Eyes always open. Heart always closed. One morning, Jon rode to the nearest holdfast, a hidden place with a small library. There he found an old maester, a man who once served at Winterfell before the wars began. Bent, slow, but still sharp, Jon asked, Do the old books ever speak of a king with no soul? The maester looked at him. You speak of Bran. Jon hesitated, then nodded. The maester said, There's a prophecy, long forgotten, not about fire, not about ice, but about sight, about a wolf with fire in his veins and eyes of the storm, a king who would rule all, but feel nothing. Jon frowned. You think that's Bran? I think, said the old man, that no king should know the ending of the story before it begins. Jon left with more questions than answers. Back at Castle Black, Samwell arrived. Tired, worried, out of breath. Jon, he said, I know you're thinking something dangerous. I can see it. Jon didn't deny it. Sam added, Bran is strange. Yes, changed. But if you remove him, the balance may collapse. He holds the past and the future together. Without him, it all may fall apart. Jon looked away. Or maybe we've built everything on a lie. Later that day, Arya returned. She had been gone for weeks. She moved like a shadow, as always. She hugged Jon, but held it too long. You're heavy, she said, like you're carrying something that's trying to eat you. Jon didn't answer. He didn't need to. Arya stared at the dagger on his table. Her eyes narrowed. Where did you get that? Jon stayed quiet. Don't do anything foolish, she warned. If you do this, there's no coming back. That night, Jon went for a walk. Alone. Or so he thought. In the trees, Bran was watching. Not in body, in mind. A raven landed on a branch above him. Just one. Its head tilted sideways. And then, in a voice Jon felt but didn't hear, Bran spoke. You think I can't see you? Jon froze. The raven blinked once and flew away. He returned to his room, breath shaking. Arya was gone. The dagger was still there. And now there was no more doubt. Jon packed his things, took only what he needed. He would leave before dawn. Behind him, the dagger sat on his belt, waiting. But what he didn't know was that Arya followed him into the night, as silent as death itself. Jon rode alone through the cold paths that led south. He didn't look back, not at the wall, not at Ghost, not at the brothers he had once sworn to protect. The silence of the forest wrapped around him like a warning. Even the wind whispered doubts. He had crossed this road before, during war, during blood, but now he was on a different path, one where he wasn't a soldier or a brother. He was a man carrying the weight of a choice no one dared speak aloud. He reached King's, landing in 4 days. The city still smelled of ash and memory, burned buildings, broken statues, and people who walked like ghosts. Daenerys had died here, and the wound was still open. No banners flew, no joy. The realm had peace, but not hope. Jon walked through, the market in a hood. No one noticed him, not the butcher, not the orphan girl begging, not the old knight sharpening a rusted blade. They all moved without light in their eyes. He stopped by a well. A boy nearby threw stones into the water. "They say the king has no face," the boy whispered to another. "He talks through birds. He sees your lies before you speak." Jon walked away fast. That night, in a hidden tavern behind the Sept ruins, Jon met a small circle of lords, those who once followed House Stark. Lord Glover, Lord Serwyn, 2 others with their sigils covered. They greeted him with quiet nods. "Your Grace," one of them said. Jon shook his head. "Don't call me that." "You should be wearing the crown," another replied. "Not that thing," Jon asked. "What are you planning?" "We don't plan, we wait, for someone brave enough to set things right." One of them looked directly at Jon's belt. "You brought it, didn't you?" Jon left without answering. His heart was loud in his chest. Later that night, he stood alone in the broken Red Keep, the hall where the Iron Throne used to be. Now, only stones remained. He whispered, "What am I doing?" Then he heard the sound of wings. Not real wings, just the memory, the echo of Drogon's cry. He turned, but saw no dragon, only shadow. He remembered Daenerys standing in this same hall, full of fire, full of dreams, and how he had ended her dreams with his own hands. Now he was walking toward another death, another betrayal. Jon sat down against a wall, pulled out a small piece of parchment, wrote only 4 words. "Forgive me for this." He folded it, tucked it into his shirt. Then he unwrapped the dagger. Cold, silent, waiting, and in that silence he heard something behind him. Footsteps, soft, light. Arya had found him again, but she said nothing, not yet. Jon moved through the Red Keep like a ghost in his own story. He knew every turn, every stone, the path to the old council chambers, the hall that once echoed with arguments and lies. But tonight there was only silence. Bran stayed in the Tower of the Hand now. He didn't sleep in the royal chambers, said he didn't need. A bed didn't need comfort, said comfort was for men, and he wasn't fully a man anymore. Jon reached the door. 2 guards stood there, dressed in new armor. Silent, cold. They didn't stop him, didn't even blink, as if they had been waiting. He stepped inside. The room was dim, a single candle, a chair by the window, and there, staring into the darkness, sat Bran. He didn't turn, didn't speak, just waited. Jon took 1 slow step. Forward. "You knew I was coming," Jon said. Bran replied, soft as mist. "I've seen every path. I watched you make this choice 1,000 times." Jon's hands tightened around the dagger at his side. Bran finally turned, his face calm, not afraid, not sad, just still. "I don't want to do this," Jon said, "but I have to, for the realm." Bran nodded. "I know." Jon frowned. "Then why didn't you stop me?" Bran whispered. "Because if I did, you would never know who you really are." That hit Jon like a blade. He shook his head. "You let Daenerys burn a city. You let people die. You saw it all, and you just watched." Bran said, "It had to happen." "Why?" Jon snapped. "So you could wear a crown." Bran's eyes changed then. Not angry, not cruel, but ancient, cold. "I'm not the king because I wanted to be. I'm king because the world needed one who could carry the weight of all its pain." Jon stepped closer. "You've lost touch with people," he said. "You speak like you're not one of us anymore." "I'm not." Jon pulled the dagger. Free. For 1 second, time seemed to stop. Bran looked straight at him. "If you do this, the wheel will break. But so will you." Jon didn't speak. He moved. Fast. Hard. The dagger slid into Bran's chest, right above the heart. No sound, no scream. Bran looked at him. One tear rolled down his cheek. His hand reached up, not to fight, but to touch Jon's arm. "You've doomed us all," he whispered. Then his eyes faded. Slowly. Quietly. Jon stepped back, breathing hard. The candle flickered. The air grew still, and for the first time in years, Jon Snow was truly alone. Behind him, a shadow moved. Arya stood at the doorway, her eyes on the dagger, her hand on her blade. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She just watched her brother, the man who had just killed the king of the realm. The room was still. Arya stood in the doorway, her face like stone. Jon held the dagger, Bran's blood warm on his fingers. He opened his mouth, maybe to explain, maybe to apologize, but no words came. Arya stepped forward, slow, eyes locked on Bran's body. She looked at his face. Peaceful. Too peaceful. "You did it," she said. Not a question. Jon nodded, barely. He saw it coming. He didn't stop me," Arya whispered. "Then he let you ruin everything." Jon took a step closer. "I had no choice. He stopped being Bran a long time ago. You saw it too." Arya didn't move. "You think I haven't wanted to kill kings before? Monsters? People? Who forgot what hearts were for? But this was our brother." "No," Jon said, voice breaking. "Our brother died years ago in that fall. What sat on that throne? It wasn't him. It was something else. Something cold." Arya turned her back, walked out without a word. Jon stood alone. Again. He cleaned the blade with his cloak, wrapped Bran's body in his own fur. Eyes closed, lips silent. He carried Bran down the back halls, unseen, the same tunnels Varys once used, quiet paths meant for secrets. The guards didn't stop him. They didn't even seem to notice. By morning, word spread. The king had passed in his sleep. Tyrion took control, held an emergency council. No one questioned the story. No one dared ask too much. Lords from across the realm arrived quietly. They whispered prayers, poured wine. Some cried, some faked tears. Some, Jon noticed, were relieved. Within 2 days, a new decision was made behind closed doors. Jon Snow would wear the crown. No feast, no songs, just quiet oaths in a stone chamber. The same lords who once banished him now bowed before him. Jon wore black. No crown, no smile. He accepted their loyalty with a nod, and not a word more. But every face in that room looked smaller than before. That night, Jon stood before the melted ruins of the Iron Throne. He stared at what was left of it, twisted metal now eaten by time and fire. He spoke only to himself. I never wanted this. Behind him, Tyrion approached. And that's why you were chosen, Jon asked. Did you know about Bran? Tyrion looked tired. I knew he wasn't the boy you remembered, but I thought that was the price for peace. Jon looked up. What if the price was too high? No answer came. Later, Jon returned to the old crypts. He went down to leave Bran's body in the Stark tomb, but the tomb was empty. No stone, no shroud. Bran's body was gone. Jon's breath caught. He looked around. Nothing, no tracks, no sound, just a whisper in the dark, like leaves in the wind. And suddenly, Jon felt like he had not ended anything. He had only just started something far worse. The tomb was empty, stone cold and silent. Bran's body was gone. Jon stood still, heart racing, hand on his sword. He looked left, right, nothing. No drag marks, no broken tiles, just a place where a body should have been. He whispered, "Who took you?" But the air didn't answer. That night, strange things began to happen in the city. First, the weirwood tree in the godswood began to bleed. Red sap ran down its bark like tears. The priest said it was just the heat. But there was no heat. Second, the ravens, hundreds of them, flying in circles above the Red Keep, never landing, never resting. They screeched at night, loud and angry. Then came the boy in the marketplace, a small child, maybe 8. He stood still in the middle of the square staring at the sky. When a woman asked him if he was lost, he turned slowly and said in a voice that didn't belong to any child, "The king has no name. The throne has no soul." Then he collapsed. The maesters rushed to him, said it was a fit, but Jon knew better. That same day, Arya returned. She hadn't been seen since the morning after Bran's death. She didn't say where she went, or why. She walked into Jon's chamber and placed something on the table. Bran's dagger, the same one Jon had used. Arya stared at her brother. "You didn't bury him, did you?" "I tried," Jon said. He was gone. Arya sat down. She looked tired, not from travel, but from something deeper. "I've been dreaming," she said. "I see a forest, red leaves, and Bran, but not as he was. He doesn't walk. He grows, like roots, like he's part of the ground." Jon didn't answer. He was too scared to. Arya leaned forward. "I think he's still here, not in flesh, but in the trees, in the blood, watching." Jon looked at the dagger. "Then what do we do?" "I don't know," she said, "but I don't think this is over." That night, Jon couldn't sleep. He walked to the balcony of his room, looked out at the sea. The moon hung low, and the city was quiet. Too quiet. Then the throne room began to shake. Slightly, barely, like the stones themselves were groaning. He ran down the stairs, met Tyrion in the hall. "Did you feel that?" Tyrion nodded. "It's not an earthquake. It's something else. The maesters say the stone is shifting." Jon stared at the floor. Or waking up. The next morning, the Iron Throne, what was left of it, had melted more. Metal dripping down like wax. No fire, no heat, just change. And for the first time, Jon felt something deep inside him. Not guilt, not regret. Fear. The fear didn't leave. Not the next morning. Not the one after that. Jon walked the halls of the Red Keep like a stranger in his own castle. The walls whispered. The shadows stretched longer than they should. Every bird that flew past the windows made him flinch. Then the letters started coming, one from the north. Sansa. The bannermen grow restless. They feel watched. Some say the godswood speaks in Bran's voice. The north will not kneel much longer. Another from the Vale. Our ravens do not return. Our dreams are strange, and there are too many crows. John read each letter with trembling fingers. He burned them after. At council meetings the faces grew cold. Lord Glover stopped. Coming. Lord Royce sent his cousin instead. Even the Riverlands sent no reply. The realm was splintering again, quietly this time, not with swords, but with silence. Then came the Dothraki. They rode in fast and angry, without banners, without warning. Their leader, a young blood rider, shouted in the courtyard, "We come for vengeance. The Dragon Queen was killed by her own. We smell the lie. Where is her killer?" Jon didn't speak to them. Tyrion did, but it didn't matter. Their eyes held fire. They would return, stronger, louder. In the Red Keep, things grew worse. A servant swore the weirwood tree spoke her name. A raven pecked a guard's eyes out before flying into the throne room and dying on the stone. And Tyrion, once the clever tongue of the realm, was caught meeting with the lords of the Reach behind closed doors. Jon confronted him. "You plotting against me now, too?" Tyrion didn't deny it. "I'm trying to protect what's left of the realm. You wear the crown, Jon, but you wear it like a noose. You are not the man they thought you'd be." Jon slammed his hand on the table. "What am I, then?" Tyrion answered quietly. "You are the sword that killed a king." Jon walked out. In the halls, Arya waited. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Her eyes held 1,000 questions. He asked one. "Would you do it again if it were you?" Arya looked away. "I would have found another way." The silence after that was worse than yelling. By the week's end, the banners of the North were taken down from the castle walls. Not torn, just gone, replaced by none. And in the night, Jon dreamed again. A forest. Red leaves, whispers in 100 voices. A boy's voice, calm, patient. "You broke the wheel. But now the wheel turns in. You." He woke up in a sweat. And Arya was gone. Only the dagger remained, laid neatly on his table. Again, waiting. The castle grew quieter with each passing day. People stopped speaking when Jon walked by. The halls echoed longer. Food went untouched. Guards changed shifts without salutes. Maesters delivered reports, then left in silence. No one asked questions anymore. Jon called a court session. No lords came. He sat alone in the high seat, wind blowing through the cracked windows, carrying the smell of something old, not death, not rot, something deeper, like the earth itself was opening. He stayed seated for hours, waiting. Only Ghost came, and Ghost was limping. Jon knelt beside him, ran his hand through the fur. There was a wound near the shoulder, deep, strange, not a bite, not a sword cut, like it came from thorns that moved. Jon stood fast, heart pounding. He ordered the guards to double the watch, though he didn't know what he was watching for anymore. Later that night, he returned to his chamber. The dagger was gone. In its place, a scroll, small, folded, smelling of ash and pine. He opened it slowly, one line, in Bran's handwriting. "You were the last mistake." The air in the room felt wrong, too thick, like the walls were breathing. He heard footsteps, turned fast. It was Arya. Her face was scratched, her clothes stained. She had been somewhere dark, somewhere wild. Jon whispered, "Where did you go?" She looked him in the eye. Beyond the wall. He stared. "Why?" She didn't blink. "I wanted to see if he was truly gone." John's voice cracked, and Arya stepped closer. He's not gone. He's waiting. John backed away. That's not possible. Arya didn't argue. She reached into her cloak and dropped something on the floor. Bran's crown. Burned. Bent, but still whole. She whispered, "I found it under a tree that bled." Then the walls began to tremble again. The throne room shook. Servants screamed. Bells rang. But there was no fire. No attackers, just the ground itself. Groaning, John rushed through the keep. At the center, the old iron throne, or what was left, cracked open, not split. Melted further, dripping now, as if the metal was losing its shape by force of will, not heat. John reached out, then stopped. A raven flew down and landed on the stone beside it. It opened its beak, and it spoke. Not in birdsong, in Bran's voice. "John." John stumbled back. The raven turned its head sideways. "You carry my end. But your beginning was always the curse." John shook his head. "No, no more games." But the raven continued. "You tried to save the world from the future, but now, the future will use you." Then the bird flew into the sky, and the throne cracked fully. Right down the middle, the throne cracked in two. A sound like thunder rolled through the red keep as metal gave way to something deeper, older. John stepped back, heart pounding. No man, no blade, no fire had touched it. It broke on its own, like it was never meant to exist after what he did. He stood there in silence, the broken throne before him, the crown lost, the realm slipping. Tyrion arrived moments later, breathless. "You saw it?" John asked. Tyrion nodded. "Everyone did." The ground shook across the city. John didn't speak. Tyrion stepped closer. "It's happening, isn't it?" John turned to him. It never stopped. Later that night, a council was called. This time not by John, but by the lords who still remained. Few of them came, but enough. The doors were locked. Whispers filled the room. Arya stood by the wall, silent, watching. Lord Royce stepped forward. "We have reason to believe the king," he looked straight at John, "has not been honest about the nature of Bran's death." Gasps. Eyes turned. Tension filled the air. John stood slowly. "What are you saying?" Tyrion cleared his throat. "Tell them the truth, John, before someone else does." John looked at Arya. She gave no signal. No help, just a still face. Then he spoke. "I killed Bran." Silence. He added, "Because he wasn't Bran anymore. He saw too much, felt too little. He let suffering happen to serve the path he believed was right. I thought, if I ended him, I could save what was left." A lord shouted, "And what gives you that right?" John didn't answer. Tyrion stood beside him. "He carried the burden none of us could, but he did it alone. And now, so does John. That is not strength, it's punishment." They debated, argued, shouted, but the decision was clear. Jon Snow would not die, but he could not stay. He would be exiled beyond the wall, again. This time, not as a brother, not as a lord, but as a man who ended a king and broke a realm. The next morning, Jon packed in silence. No armor, no sword, just warm clothes, bread, and the dagger. Always the dagger. Arya walked with him to the gate. She said, "You could run. Go west. Disappear." Jon shook his head. "That's not who I am." She hugged him. "You were my brother before you were a king, and you'll be my brother after." Then she placed something in his hand, a piece of wood, carved, shaped like a raven, she whispered. "If it speaks again, Don't answer. He left. Days passed. John reached the forest beyond the wall. Just him and Ghost. Snow fell. Ice creaked. Silence ruled. One evening, as he lit a fire, he saw something. A girl, barefoot, watching him from the trees. She had green eyes, but they weren't hers. They were Bran's, and they blinked once, slowly. John didn't move, and in that moment, he knew. The story wasn't over. It had only changed its form.